Hey there guys, this is Richard, your host, with another marvelous video. This time, is Michael Myers a supernatural monstrosity or a mortal human revealed? Michael Myers in the Halloween franchise have seen many ups and downs, but we think that the worst is over for the franchise, at least commercially. When the news of the 2018 film Halloween came out, everyone started questioning the decision. I mean, there had been a string of 9 films holding the Halloween tag, and most of them were commercial and critical failures. Fans desperately wanted Michael to be left alone, but then again, many were in favor of the reboot. And to everyone's delight, David Gordon Green proved that not all reboots are as bad as one may expect, and his film is the very reason why we made this video. Green's Halloween Kills reignited the burning question about Michael's mortality. Even if you have not watched the film yet, it shouldn't come as a surprise to you that Michael will return in Halloween Ends. Halloween Kills ending has Michael take some serious damage, but that doesn't stop him from killing a bunch of people. So, the important question to ask is Michael Myers an immortal supernatural being who once used to be human? Or is he simply a crazy fellow who is just way too strong because of his mental condition? But before we answer that question, let us explore how Michael died in the various films. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Now, the first Halloween was clearly the best film of the franchise and is eponymous for the slasher film subgenre. It had the most effective scares and was well executed. We only get glimpses of Michael in the first half while he stalks and prepares to make his kills. But things pick up at an ever-rising pace in the second half and culminate in one of the best horror climaxes. Laurie first stabs Michael in the eye with a hanger and then sticks a knife in his chest. He seemingly dies, but then he rises back up to attack her, which is when Loomis comes to the scene and shoots Michael 6 times before the impact sends Michael 2 stories down on the lawn. So, there we have it, shot 6 times and then falling from a height sufficient to break quite a few bones. If even the falling wasn't enough, the bullet should have done the trick. Well, they didn't. Halloween 2 picks up where the first one left off, and the majority of the film takes place in the hospital where Laurie was taken after her adventures with Michael Myers. This ensured that the film remains scary as well as claustrophobic. Although Michael manages to kill many people in the film using various innovative methods, he finally meets his apparent end at the hands of Dr. Loomis, when the latter sacrifices himself by lighting up his lighter in a room that was filled with concentrated oxygen. Both Loomis and Michael get engulfed in flames, but the viewers can see Michael getting up, all caught in flames, and walking away before collapsing. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, didn't feature Michael and is considered by many to be the worst installment of the franchise. However, the aptly titled Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, brought back the knife-wielding serial killer. While being transported in an ambulance, Michael wakes up after overhearing the ambulance crew talking about Michael's last surviving family member, his niece named Jamie.
No, I still don't understand.
Well, yes, he resumes his killing spree and tries to kill anyone who stands in the path between him and his little victim. While the film failed to live up to the expectations of fans, even Michael's death sequence wasn't very impressive or novel. So at the end of the film, Michael gets surrounded by a bunch of police officers who rain fire on him with whatever guns they had. But wasn't this tried already? He was shot before several times, and he always came back. Yeah, there were more guns this time, but come on. It simply felt like old stuff in new packaging. Halloween 5 takes place right after the events of the previous film and has Michael lie in a coma for almost a year. He resumes his hunt for little Jamie, who had been transferred to a sanitarium because of whatever she faced in the previous film. There's also something about a psychic link between Jamie and Michael, which hints about something supernatural about Michael and, of course, Jamie. In the end, Dr. Loomis uses little Jamie as bait to lure Michael and succeeds. After an intense fight sequence, Loomis manages to tranquilize Michael heavily, but just to be sure that Michael is dead, he beats the crap out of Michael with a wooden board. The amount of sedatives that Loomis shot Michael with was probably enough to take down a full-grown horse. So, there we have it, killed by sedatives. The sixth installment of the franchise, Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, tried to be a bit different from its predecessors, and while the idea and story were new, the film itself was poorly executed. So, Halloween 6 dealt with Michael's history and tried to explore why Michael killed people in the first place. This was the first film that categorically established that Michael has supernatural powers, etc. However, Michael's death sequence was nonetheless a copied one. In here, Tommy, the little boy that Laurie Strode was babysitting in the original film, had grown up into a young man and was obsessed with Michael. He turned out to be a major protagonist and stabbed Michael with some corrosive liquid before beating him with a pipe. Nevertheless, Michael fought the chemicals as well. The seventh installment of the film, Halloween H2O, or 20 Years Later, again picks up Laurie Strode's story, who has now moved to California and changed her identity. Laurie serves as the principal of an elite school but still lives in Michael's fears, and her fears come true when Michael comes for her to finish what she started, while Laurie tries to save her loved ones from his wrath. At the end of the film, Laurie manages to subdue Michael, but she isn't quite certain that he is dead for good, so she takes his body in an ambulance to a cliff and crashes it so that Michael is pinned down between a tree and the ambulance. As a final blow, she decapitates Michael's head with an axe. But it wasn't Michael that she killed. It was another man who she had mistaken for Michael. So, the eighth installment has Michael back in action while he haunts a group of thrill-seeking teens who had decided to spend a night at Michael Myers' home. The film involved a bit of found footage in it but was extremely rough at execution. Nevertheless, this time around, they killed Michael by first electrocuting him with a bunch of live wires and then by making a building collapse around him. The film had nothing new to offer to the table except the fact that Michael had been electrocuted. Rob Zombie's 2 reboots had him killed in more orthodox ways, but yeah, Rob Zombie's Laurie not only shoots Michael in his head, but he also falls on an old thresher, impaling himself. After which, Laurie strikes him several times with a sharp blade. So, here we have it. Michael was shot, burned, electrocuted, stabbed to the chest, injected with chemicals, but somehow he does manage to make a comeback, and every time he does that, he's more sinister than the last time. So there have been 4 timelines in the Halloween universe, namely the original timeline, which ends Tommy killing Michael in the 6th film. Then came the H2O timeline, which lasted for 2 films. Rob Zombie also rebooted the franchise with 2 produced and 1 cancelled film. And now we have David Gordon Green's reboot that ignores every film that took place after John Carpenter's original. However, all of these timelines have given a different aspect of Michael's immortality and supernatural quotient. Although John Carpenter's original gave only subtle hints about Michael's immortality, the later films, especially The Curse of Michael Myers, made strong arguments that Michael was supernatural in nature. In the film, Tommy Doyle, played by Paul Rudd, theorized that Michael Myers as a child may have been inflicted with the Curse of Thorn, which was an ancient druid curse. According to the curse, a child from each tribe would be chosen to bear the curse, and the child must sacrifice a next of kin on Samhain, or the ensuing night between the last day of October and the first day of November, which we now call Halloween night. Furthermore, Halloween comics written by Phil Nutman and Daniel Farrans for Chaos Comics further corroborate the story. The comics deal with Michael's past at the Smith Grove Sanitarium and the 15 years he spent there under the watch of Dr. Loomis, but a brief sequence of panels elaborate on Michael's cursed history. The comics place the curse some 2,000 years ago when a man named Murphy Myers was inflicted with it. Michael Myers is the direct descendant of that cursed forefather. Furthermore, each firstborn son of every generation of Myers carries the seeds of the Samhain curse and carries out most of his killings in those days. For more information on this subject, you can check out our video titled Disturbing Hidden Origin of Michael Myers from Halloween Comic Books Explored, Michael Myers Past. So, Michael tries to kill Laurie in the original timeline because she is apparently his sister, and he was compelled to kill his family due to the curse. This also explained how Michael would revive and regenerate from the various injuries he sustained throughout the 6 films. However, the film over-explained its great monster. I mean, People feared Michael because of the mystery behind his strength, but by making yet another unkillable supernatural force like Freddy or Jason, they killed the mystery and hence the interest of fans. It was probably for this reason that Curse of Michael Myers never saw a sequel or any mention in the subsequent films. The H2O reboot had merely 2 films in its basket. Directed by Steve Miner and Rick Rosenthal, respectively, the films picked up from where Halloween 2 left off and ignored everything that had happened in between. Furthermore, Laurie Strode's daughter Jamie was retconned as her son named John. As discussed earlier, Laurie decapitates Michael at the end of H2O, and if he were to return in the next film, his supernatural side would be made concrete. However, Halloween Resurrection showed that it wasn't Michael that Laurie had killed, but an unfortunate paramedic whose vocal cords had been damaged by Michael. Naturally, Resurrection was a misnomer and a misguiding title. Resurrection then went on to proceed with making Michael a typical slasher, killing young boys and girls. Rob Zombie's reboot film Halloween completely reimagined John Carpenter's horror classic. He tried to make the film serve as both a remake and an origin story of Michael Myers. However, this representation of Michael was the most human ever. In the movie, he started to show psychotic tendencies, but things went out of hand on Halloween night when he murdered a school bully, his sister Judith, and 2 others, sparing only his infant sister, Laurie. Michael then spent his following years at the Smiths Grove Sanitarium, but became a recluse. And then he managed to escape from his confinement to wreak havoc on Haddonfield.
Out. Michael's out.
However, Rob Zombie's films did give him a certain supernatural side by showing that he could see the ghost of his mother, who had committed suicide after learning that Michael had killed a nurse at the sanatorium. To sum up, John Carpenter's original didn't intend to depict Michael as an immortal or supernatural being, but the subsequent films tried to point him with otherworldly colors. Now, it's time for the reveal. Oh, by the way, spoiler alert. There are a few spoilers in this section of the video, so if you haven't watched the film yet, we'd request you to use your discretion. Now coming to Green's reboot trilogy, which is being considered as canon along with John Carpenter's original, the 2018 film Halloween depicts Michael as a formidable force that would go to any lengths to get what he wants. But at the end of 2021's Halloween Kills, Karen first stabs Michael with a pitchfork and steals his mask, luring him to a mob to get lynched. The mob then beats Michael left, right, and center with wooden blocks, baseball bats. One guy shoots the boogeyman 6 times, and Michael seems dead. However, when the crowd relaxes and begins to disperse, Michael gets back up and resumes the murderous spree, killing everyone who was present there, including Tommy and Brackett. Now, one may wonder how it was possible for Michael to take all that damage and yet kill each of his attackers. The explanation is given by Laurie in a voiceover when Michael stalks Karen back to his house to kill her. She says, "I always thought Michael Myers was flesh and blood, just like you and me, but a mortal man could not have survived what he's lived through. The more he kills, the more he transcends into something else impossible to defeat. Fear. People are afraid. That is the true curse of Michael." So, you see, that's the explanation for Michael bearing supernatural traits. It's as if his botched mental state is turning him into a superhuman of sorts. If we are to believe in science and the concept of hysterical strength, then humans start displaying superhuman strength in life-threatening situations. For instance, there have been examples of parents lifting a car to save their child stuck underneath it, or sometimes when we are in the face of an imminent accident, our brain starts to work faster, making it seem like time is running slower. These actions are the result of several hormones like endorphins, adrenaline, etc., all parts of the brain, such as the amygdala or the hypothalamus. Therefore, when sane humans can achieve superhuman feats, why is it wrong to believe that a person as mentally challenged as Michael Myers wouldn't gain superhuman strength? Having said that, director Green himself gave hints at an interview that Michael doesn't necessarily have any supernatural abilities, but he may have superhuman strength. So, according to the Halloween canon, Michael is simply an enraged human with outstanding physical abilities. Let us know what you think is the truth. Do you think he's just another supernatural killer like Jason, Freddy, or Pinhead? Or is he a mortal human who's in the best possible physical condition? And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.